Some of them might
Hmm.
have even had some kind of cognitive disability. But these other ones that we've been talking about, who were 8 foot and up, like Og of Magog and Goliath, and all of the ones that you read about in the Bible, and some that the Paiutes talk about in Lovelock Cave, they seem to be very robust and
Yeah.
strong. And as a matter of fact, I remember reading in several of the stories that they're reported to have voices that are almost unbearable to listen to because they're like
Hmm.
loud bulls.
Well, they
So,
have long vocal cords because they have long. Their anatomy is long. You've got men in America, I think other places, that these giants that are like 8, 9 feet tall that are buried in copper armor. Says
hmm
two things. One, he's a soldier, so he's not some acromagaliac that can't barely move.
hmm
And two, he's working copper, which is heavy. He had to be robust. He had to be an athlete.
yeah. Yeah, and there are accounts throughout some of the Roman writers, some of the ancient historical writers, even around the year 1 BC, some of these Roman emperors they specifically had soldiers and guards who they picked because they were 8, 9, 10 feet tall that
Hmm.
came from other countries that the soldiers had gone in and conquered. And that was also the point in time when the Romans were sending troops over to Great Britain and Ireland to wipe out the Celts.
Yeah. There's one thing I didn't put in my book, but if I can remember what I was going to say now.
We're talking about Romans.
Yeah, of all the flood stories, and if you listen to some of the American Indian stories, they call themselves the people, or the first people, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not talking about the giants. And we think, oh, you mean you're the first ones over here? No, they mean we're the first people, like they're the created or the ones that got off the ark. I think what they're doing is they're referring to their ancient history, which we all have in common. But you don't hear, at least I haven't read, where giants claim to be the first people,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not the first people. Adam and Eve and normal human beings down for 500 years were the people, and we all derive from Adam and Eve through Noah and his 3 sons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when the Lakota Indians say we're the first people, they're correct because the giant people came along later. You see what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the very fact of some of the Indians and their racial pride isn't just racial pride. It's actually, I think, a reference to their ancient history in memory form.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to mention for anybody that wanted to look this up that I did find. I'm very interested in the fact that there's just absolutely almost no DNA results for any of these giants, and many of them they've even taken photographs in the 1800s up through the 1900s. But I was able to find one article, and the link is way too long to read. If you put in Charles Burney, Byrne, who is a famous Irish giant who was, 9 feet? Do you remember, Joe?
See, in the photograph, he looks 9 feet, but that may be a 5'3" man standing by him. It's a little hard to know, but I think he was at least 8. I don't have that. I saw that. I don't have that right in front of me, but he was a big man.
I know it's
And
over 8. It's
yeah,
Oh, wait a minute. I've got it written here right now. I'm sorry. It's 7 foot 7 inches is what I've got. So almost 8 feet tall.
yeah.
He was Irish, and they did do that. His skeleton has been laying around somewhere since 1904. I just read this recently, and they actually did a study on. I'm not sure if it was bone or teeth, but they found out that he had a mutation, a genetic mutation that would lead to a pituitary tumor. Pituitary is related to growth. And as it turns out, they found other Irish families, including some that are alive there today, who have this same mutation, and they are all extremely tall people.
Hmm.
So
Well,
that go ahead.
that could be. You see, that is a non-spiritual explanation, or so it seems. I guess the next question would be, well, how did they get the mutation? Why was the mutation there, and when did that start? So, it opens it back up to, well, is there a spiritual connection there with these fallen angels? Sure. But it does seem to at least provide a biological explanation. I have a friend who's now passed away a couple years ago. You may have heard of John Saunders, who played in all the spaghetti westerns with old Clint Eastwood. And always played a bad guy, real rough-looking face and big hands. Everybody would know him you'd know him if you saw him. Most people didn't know his name. John was a dear friend and extremely intelligent, and I guess he's about as Irish as you get. But he had a pituitary thing, and so his forehead was, really pronounced. And when he was about 50, I think, or so, the pituitary acted up again. His hands began to grow, his forehead began to grow, and he had to have an operation. But he was Irish. He wasn't very tall. There are racial proclivities. Irishmen, Italians, Slavs, they all have, particular things that are endemic or identified with their particular race, if you will. So it's not out of line to say, well, yeah, that's an Irish trait. The tall thing, and then you got the little ones.
Right. Those are interesting too.
Well, the leprechauns.
What is interesting about, and it's not just so much Ireland, because these folks, the Celts, did make their way all the way to all of the British Isles, but they wound up pretty much forming a stronghold in Ireland. And if you stop and think about it, red-haired and blonde-haired giants, okay, well, you think of Irish and maybe Scottish, and and the height, and so maybe there is some sort of a genetic, whether you want to call it a recessive gene or whatever it is, there is something over there that's still in operation that doesn't show up, doesn't throw every generation, but it shows up enough that it's still a trait that people see.
Yeah. Well, old Steve Quayle in his book had an account in there that I really wanted to add to mine, but I didn't. Supposedly there's a record in of the Germans, the ancient Germans, that there would be 30,000, I believe, of these soldiers with blonde hair, 7 feet tall, and they apparently used lime water, and I don't know if they made a mohawk out of their hair or something, but they put lime water on their hair to stiffen it, and they would go into battle naked, and they come screaming, over the hill, and they almost routed the Romans, I guess the Romans couldn't be routed, except with the little picks in Scotland. But, that's, there's a lot of tall Germans. And, and they're not like the Irish.
Yeah, that would get your attention for sure.
Oh, yeah. Here come these screaming guys with that crazy-looking hairdo. Boy, it's like, let's go back to Rome.
Well, one of the things that I want to do, and let me give the number out again before I say this. The number, if you want to call in with a question, is 888-919-2355. And you're listening to InceptionRadioNetwork.com. This is the Epic Voyages show, and we're talking to Joe Taylor about his book, Giants Against Evolution, the second half of which, in the back of his book, is about giant critters. And I don't want to change the subject here, but I do want to have Joe back sometime, probably right after the first of the year, to talk about the animal remains in his book. But just to kind of whet my interest right now, Joe, we're talking about giants. We're talking about red hair. We're talking about double rows of teeth and all that. Talk to me about Bigfoot and Sasquatch. And before you answer, I want to tell you something. This is for you that I found on the internet yesterday. They actually have Bigfoot and Yeti hair samples at Oxford University, and they are studying the DNA for them right now. I just found this. Yes.
Is this a recent acquisition?
There's a geneticist, Brian Sykes, Brian with a Y, Sykes, Sykes, at Oxford. And this was something I found on abcnews.go.com. dated May 24th, and it is about Yeti and Bigfoot hair samples that were good enough that they were able to get some actual DNA that they could study.
Really?
So,
And haven't released the results yet?
no, and this was May, so I guess it's taking them some time, or they haven't gotten back around to reporting on it. But what do you see in an association there between what we know as Sasquatch and some of these giants?
Well, I've got a file on all that stuff. I'm really interested in it, so I've been looking at it a long time. I've talked to quite a few people, some eyewitnesses, and my conclusions have been that yes, they are real. There's maybe two or three kinds of them: a four-toed kind and a five-toed kind. One of the guys told me, and I think that's true. There are three colors: blonde, red, and black. And apparently, the further north you go, the taller they are, up to unbelievably 18 feet. I'm just telling you what I heard. I can't say that's true.
Sure.
But oftentimes they're said to be 8 or 9 feet tall. They're covered in hair. When they're seen, they're always seen walking upright like a human. They appear to have, they hold their babies. They have some kind of interchange of sounds between them, like maybe a language. Well, so do crickets and birds and dogs and cats. They love their young or appear to. So that doesn't make them not animals. It doesn't make them people.
Uh-huh.
But this may sound weird to you, and I may be proven wrong. Maybe this DNA will prove they're humans with hair. But it has occurred to me that because the Bible says that God has his people in every nation, kindred, tongue, and tribe, that there are somewhere, we've had the gospel of Jesus Christ over here in the United States now for at least 500 years. It's been in India. It's been all these places where you have these things show up. There's been the availability of some kind of a Christian church. In my estimation, if they were humans, by now, after 500 years, at least one of them, with their hair and everything, would have come forth and become a Christian, be baptized and acknowledge Jesus Christ. Okay, now maybe that sounds too weird for a non-Christian, but to me, that disqualifies them as a human because they haven't done that. Doesn't mean one won't, but I think what they are is an upright ape, and they very, very may well be the Gigantopithecus found over in Africa. That's the giant ape over there, which is a problem for the evolutionists, by the way. You can't have this big old ape over there when they're supposed to be little bitty apes turning into humans. You got this giant ape, and he's pretty human-like. There's too many occurrences. It's like UFOs. Come on, after 1 million sightings, there has to be some truth to it. And it's like the Bigfoot. There are tens of thousands of sightings. So there's something out there, and I think, I don't know if they got DNA on the Gigantopithecus, but they have a lot of teeth of it. If they get teeth out of Bernie, maybe they get out of those things over there. Well, if the Sasquatch and Yeti is the modern day Gigantopithecus, that is a problem for evolution, okay? Because they haven't changed any. That means they didn't evolve. And they can say, oh, well, they're living fossils like roaches. Yeah, well, that's still your problem as an evolutionist. But I don't know. I'd be really interested to know what they find out, and I want to know if they're telling me the whole story, because I know enough scientists to know that they'll tell you the truth, but it's not the whole truth. If they tell the whole truth, then what they told you at the beginning you wouldn't draw the same conclusion they want you to draw, okay?
Well, I would encourage everyone out there listening. I know you're not in the chat room, Joe, but I can send you this link. I did copy and paste the link to this abcnews.go.com article in the chat room, and anybody who's interested in this kind of thing, keeping up with it, feel free to get in touch with somebody here on IRN or even email Joe at his website, mountblanco.com, www.mtblanco.com, and tell us, because I think it's just weird that there are no DNA analyses I mean, I really had to look to find this one, and I don't have access to a lot of what I would call journal articles, but I'm not even sure they'd be reporting that in there either. So I think it's strange that there's not any results of that.
Well, I think they're probably, I mean, to cut you off, but I think they probably have done this. I think it's like the dinosaur bones. A friend of mine and I have been secretly having dinosaur bones dated, and the labs didn't know what they were dating, but they gave us dates, legitimate carbon-14 dates. I mean, the process was legitimate. That are all in the 20, 30,000 range for dinosaurs, T-Rexes, Triceratops, Hadrosaur, that sort of thing, proving they're not millions of years old, and they're not even 20,000 years old. But, we're saying, look, you guys have all these dinosaur bones. You go do the test like we did. You got the money, and you'll get the same results. Well, they're not going to do it because it kills the theory of evolution. So if you get a DNA sample and it turns out to be that they're not human, well, you've done two things. You've proven they're not human, and you've proven they exist. Now how are you going to explain their existence? I think there's, in the academic circles, again, I'm not trying to just blacken everybody's with a broad brush here, every academic, but a lot of them do hide information or they give partial information. So I think they've done this a lot, and it's probably, it's getting too easy to have all these tests done yourself like we did, and I guarantee you if I could get what I thought was a sample of hair or anything, scat, anything else, I would have it tested. I'd have a thorough lab test, see what they really are. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They're cool anyway.
Yeah, to me, it's an issue of having a clue and finding out what the answer is as to where did that come from and what is it. It's not about trying to guard your hypothesis or your theory.
Well, the academics have another problem, and it's a legitimate problem. That is that they can't just glob onto every rumor they hear out there and say, yeah, there's UFOs because my friend told me he saw one. An academic has to go through their critical examination process, try to disprove it. Oh, that's good. But you can't just hold the information if it doesn't agree with your own personal viewpoint. And I think that often happens. But, all these years, the academic guys, I mean, I've seen them do it over and over and over. They poo-poo giants. They poo-poo Bigfoot, the Loch Ness, the flying snakes, you name it. They've just discounted and laughed it all off. Well, okay, you're not the guys that put the spaceship on our craft on the moon, because the guys that put that on the moon said, I heard a guy that did this with some fuel and he got this result. Oh, well, let's try that. The academic pinheads go, oh, well, that never has been done. We're not going to do that. At NASA, they don't think that way. I think if the NASA get a hold of some Sasquatch hair, I think they date it and go, well, here's what it is. Because NASA has a deal in hard science. You can't put somebody on the moon if you deal in theories. That theory has to be proven. It has to be worked out. So, again, the academic for all these years have discounted this stuff. Well, now it looks kind of bad to come along and finally go, well, I guess they really are real. Yeah, well, why didn't you do this 50 years ago when we started hearing about them?
Well, several of the things I read sounds like the Smithsonian and Carnegie and some other over in, especially in England, some of the museums and universities have some of these remains, but they're, who knows what, down in the bottom of a basement somewhere. But if they have them, I wonder what the procedure would be to have creditable scientists who want to do DNA studies on them and publish it. How would one of those people get a hold of someone and try to find those remains? Do you have any idea?
You'd have to I think the way I would go about it, you would find somebody that who has some connection to someone over there who would open a door. Because after all, they can't be, having every Tom, Dick, and Harry come along that wants to look at the collection. They have to, filter people. I would say, look, my friend Dr. So-and-so said this and that. Oh, well, yeah, okay, so now we can talk. that's the way I would do it. And there's probably people doing that sort of thing. But then you run into the deal like with, you ever heard of Jack Quazzo, Dr. Quazzo?
No.
Okay, about 15, 20 years ago, he wanted to go to France and look at all the Neanderthal remains. So he gets permission, acquires a portable X-ray machine. He's an orthodontist. He knows all about the human skull, bones, teeth, all this stuff. He knows it inside and out. He goes to France and gets there, and I think to the Museum of Man, and they said, well, we're not going to let you look at them. And Quazzo says, well, okay, that's great. Well, I'd always wanted to come to France because my dad was in Normandy Beach. Oh, your dad was on Normandy Beach? Yeah, and I just always want to come here. Well, okay, you can see the collection. So they let him see the collection. They said, you have to give us a copy of all your X-rays. And he did. Well, when he went in there, I hope this doesn't get him in trouble because he published it, but he said when he first began to look at the first few skulls, he knew he was in trouble because he could see they had misaligned the jaws to make them look ape-like because humans have an overbite. Our upper teeth come over our lower, and there's ways the jaws go together. He also noted that they had identified some of these individuals as being a lot older than they were, or a lot younger. I forget which. Anyway, they were maturing later. And he looked at the teeth and said the teeth, these people were so much better than us that they could re-enamel their teeth. That their teeth, once they were scratched by sand or something, the enamel grew back over the scratch. Isn't that amazing? So when he gave them their, I guess he gave them a copy of all this stuff, and somebody tried to break into his apartment. He was chased out of France, and when he got back to America, was shot at.
Oh, my goodness.
But what he proved was Neanderthals were people living a long time, like hundreds of years old, which flattens your head, causes your brow to grow, your jaw changes because you chew with the back of your mouth when you're young, the front of your mouth when you're old. This does something to your face, okay? And if you live to be 200 or 300 years old, then you're going to have a Neanderthal-type skull. And you're not a different species or a different breed. You're a old person. And, I mean, his book, I think it's called the Buried Alive, the Neanderthal Story.
What is his name?
Jack Quazzo, Quozzo.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, amazing book. One of the best books written in this century. There have been others, that. I was lined up to go to a major museum here in the United States to access a bunch of mammoth bones, and I was going to select the ones that this little skeleton needed, mold them, not damage the bones, give them back the bones, and then take a cast and restore this little mammoth skeleton, and it would have been the second only mounted woolly mammoth skeleton in North America. Okay? It's a pretty big deal. So I called the curator up, and I said, okay, I've got my ticket here, and I just here's when I'll be there, checking with everything. Well, now who's this for? I said, well, it's not for anybody. It's just a private individual. It just, that would be morally wrong to help a commercial collector. I go, come on, you are a commercial collector. Oh, no, I'm not, no. I said, yes, you are. You study bones. You get paid for working with these bones, but you're using other people's money. I risk my own money to study this stuff. You're getting paid by the government. Oh, well, it would just be morally wrong. Well, I was happy to hear that they believe in morals. Where do morals come from? Would that be the Bible? Oh, no. Well, so to cancel my trip, I had to give my plane ticket away. Yeah. Would have been the only other standing woolly mammoth, at least at that time. This was like 12, 15 years ago. That's an important deal, but not important enough to have a commercial collector. God forbid somebody gets paid for this stuff. It's like, come on, it's like Picasso. You can't run down a commercial artist because he gets paid for his work. Remember Picasso, your favorite abstract artist, made untold millions. He was a commercial artist. Same way these paleontologists.
Well, Joe, I know you're not going to believe this, but you and I have been talking for almost a solid hour and a half.
Good grief. Mostly yakking away here.
No, actually, it wasn't mostly you, but I'm glad what you did say because it filled in a lot of the blanks I had in my head from reading some of the book. Let me remind everybody where they can find your book. If they go to www.mountblanco.com, or if you want to call them on the phone, it's 806-675-7777, and ask for Giants Against Evolution by Joe Taylor. And Joe, I can't tell you how great it is that you come on tonight and talk to us about the Giants, and I wish you the best of luck with installing your stegosaur tomorrow there in Oklahoma.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Well, we certainly enjoyed it too, and I will be getting back in touch with you to talk about the giant critters after the first of the year. We'll let things calm down a little bit. You've been listening to InceptionRadioNetwork.com, and this is the Epic Voyages show. I want to remind you to check out the Epic Voyagers website at www.epicvoyagers.com, and also their YouTube video clips. They've got quite a nice little library there. Next week on Epic Voyages here on IRN, Kevin Cook is going to be speaking with Giovanni Lordi. I hope I said that correctly. That is who is an Australian hypnotist with a book called Toolbox for Life. He talks about maximizing your potential by working with your own unconscious mind. It sounds like it's a real interesting show. And any of you that are listening that are down in the Texas area, Sam Osmanagic, who is the fellow that's been excavating the Bosnian pyramids since 2005, will be in Grapevine at the Epic monthly meeting on Saturday, December the 8th at 2 p.m. He's going to update everybody on the fact that they have been able to carbon date some of their excavation this summer. So that will be a really good meeting. Joe, it's been great talking to you. And everybody out there, I guess we'll see you in about a month. So take it easy. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you and good night.
Uh-huh.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's Epic Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for Epic. Until next time.